The unthinkable just happened. WWE just pulled the trigger on something so massive, so absolutely earth-shattering, that the entire wrestling world is still trying to pick its jaw up off the floor. Bron Breakker, the most dominant force we've seen in years, the second-generation powerhouse who's been tearing through the roster like a Category 5 hurricane, has been suspended indefinitely by Adam Pearce. And I'm telling you right now, what you're about to hear in the next few minutes will completely change how you see WWE's future. This isn't just another suspension. This isn't just another storyline. This is the moment where everything we thought we knew about Monday Night Raw gets thrown out the window and set on fire. I've been covering wrestling on this channel for years, breaking down the biggest moments, the most shocking twists, and I can say with absolute certainty that what Adam Pearce did has sent shockwaves that are still rippling through every locker room, every arena, and every fan watching at home. If you've been following Bron Breakker's path of destruction, if you've watched him demolish everyone put in front of him with that raw, unfiltered aggression that makes your spine tingle, then you know exactly why this suspension hits different. Before we dive deep into this absolute bombshell, I need you to do something for me, for this channel, for this community we're building together. If you love wrestling, if you live for these moments that make you jump out of your seat, then smash that subscribe button right now. Become part of the SLAMZONE family because we're the ones who don't just watch wrestling, we feel it in our bones. Hit that notification bell too, because when something this explosive happens, you're going to want to be the first to know. We break it down together, we analyze it together, and we experience every brutal second together. That like button? Show it some love, because that's how we keep growing this incredible community of hardcore wrestling fans who understand that what we're witnessing right now is history in the making. Now, let me take you back to where this all started, because you can't understand the magnitude of the suspension without understanding the absolute warpath Bron Breakker has been on. Picture this, a young man carrying the weight of one of wrestling's most legendary bloodlines on his shoulders. The Steiners. His father, Rick Steiner. His uncle, the legendary Scott Steiner. These aren't just names, they're wrestling royalty. And Bron Breakker didn't just inherit a famous last name, he inherited a legacy of brutality, of dominance, of making opponents regret the day they ever stepped into a squared circle. From the moment Bron Breakker burst onto the main roster, it was like watching a force of nature that couldn't be contained. That spear, the devastating spear that looks like it could split a man in half, became the most feared move in all of WWE. Every time Breakker's music hit, you could feel the energy shift in the arena. The crowd would erupt, a mix of awe and terror, because they knew what was coming. They knew that whoever was standing across from him was about to experience pain on a level they'd never forget. Week after week, month after month, Bron Breakker mowed through the competition. Veterans who'd been in the business for decades couldn't figure him out. Rising stars got knocked back down before they could even shine. The Intercontinental Championship? He made it look like child's play. Every defense was more brutal than the last. That gorilla press power slam that he executes with such precision, such devastating impact, it's like watching someone get thrown from the top of a building. The sound of bodies hitting that canvas echoes through your soul. But here's where things started to get dangerous, where the line between competitive aggression and something darker began to blur. Bron Breakker wasn't just winning matches anymore, he was destroying people. Post-match beatdowns became his signature. The ref would call for the bell, the match would be over, and Breakker would just keep going. You could see it in his eyes, that look that tells you he's not satisfied, that one spear isn't enough, that one victory doesn't scratch the itch. Officials would swarm the ring, trying to pull him off his opponents, and he'd toss them aside like they weighed nothing. Security teams would rush down the ramp, and Breakker would stand there, chest heaving, sweat dripping, daring anyone to try and stop him. The WWE universe was split right down the middle. Half of them were absolutely mesmerized by this level of dominance, this throwback to an era when wrestlers were legitimately intimidating forces. The other half started to whisper concerns. When does intensity cross into recklessness? When does being a fierce competitor become being a legitimate threat to the safety of everyone in that locker room? And then came the incidents that Adam Pearce couldn't ignore anymore. That backstage attack 3 weeks ago, you remember that? Cameras caught Bron Breakker absolutely demolishing a mid-carder in the hallway, slamming him through a production crate with such force that EMTs had to be called immediately. The chaos was real. The danger was real. Wrestlers started looking over their shoulders. Nobody felt safe when Breakker was in the building, and that created a problem that went beyond storylines and entertainment. This was about the actual physical well-being of the roster. 2 weeks ago, during that triple threat match that had the crowd on their feet, Breakker didn't just win, he sent both opponents to the medical facility. One suffered a legitimate concussion. The other had to be evaluated for potential internal injuries from repeated spears that looked less like wrestling moves and more like car crashes. The referee tried to stop the match early, tried to call it off when it became clear things had gone too far, and Breakker shoved him down. Shoved a WWE official. That moment right there, that's when you could feel the entire landscape shifting. Adam Pearce had been patient. The Raw general manager had given Breakker chance after chance, warning after warning. Pearce understands the business. He knows that intensity sells tickets, that dominant champions create must-see television. But Pearce also has a responsibility, a duty to protect the men and women who step into that ring every single week and put their bodies on the line for our entertainment. Midpoint reminder: before I get to what happened when Pearce finally dropped the hammer, I want to remind you that if you're loving this breakdown, if you're feeling that electricity that only professional wrestling can deliver, then hit that like button right now. Subscribe to SLAMZONE and join this incredible family of fans who live and breathe this business. Share this video with every wrestling fan you know who's been talking about Bron Breakker, because this is the conversation everyone needs to be having. The notification bell is your ticket to never missing another explosive moment like this one. Continuing the build, the confrontation between Adam Pearce and Bron Breakker was set for this week's Monday Night Raw, and the anticipation was suffocating. Social media was on fire with speculation. Would Pearce strip him of the championship? Would there be fines? Mandatory anger management classes? Nobody could have predicted what was actually about to go down. The production team set up a ring segment, center stage, no match, just two men and a microphone, and decisions that would alter the course of WWE history. When Bron Breakker's music hit and he walked out onto that stage, the reaction was deafening. Love him or hate him, you cannot deny the presence this man commands. Every muscle in his body looks carved from granite. The way he moves with that predatory confidence, like a lion who knows he's the apex predator and everyone else is just prey. He stepped into that ring, and you could cut the tension with a knife. The crowd was buzzing, cameras flashing, everyone leaning forward in their seats because they knew something significant was about to happen. Adam Pearce stood across from him, and you have to respect the courage it takes to stand face to face with someone who could physically dismantle you without breaking a sweat. Pearce had a folder in his hands, official WWE documentation, and the look on his face was all business. No smiles, no jokes. This was the general manager about to make one of the toughest decisions of his career. Pearce started laying it out, point by point. The violations, the attacks, the injuries, the complete disregard for authority and the safety of fellow wrestlers. His voice was steady, but you could hear the weight of it, the gravity of addressing someone who'd become uncontrollable. Breakker just stood there, arms crossed, jaw clenched, that intensity radiating off him like heat from a furnace. He wasn't apologetic. He wasn't remorseful. If anything, he looked proud of the carnage he'd created. The crowd started chanting, split between support and condemnation. Let him wrestle echoed from one section. You're too far from another. The arena became this pressure cooker of emotion, everyone knowing that whatever Pearce was about to say would change everything. And then Pearce said the words that made time stand still. Bron Breakker, effective immediately, you are suspended indefinitely from WWE programming. Indefinitely. Not 1 week. Not 30 days. Indefinitely. That word hung in the air like a death sentence. The crowd erupted into absolute chaos, some fans screaming in shock, others in approval, everyone on their feet because the implications were staggering. The Intercontinental Champion, the most dominant force on Monday Night Raw, removed from television with no return date specified. Breakker's reaction was chilling. His face went from intense to absolutely volcanic in seconds. You could see the rage building, the muscles in his neck tensing, fists clenching so hard his knuckles went white. For a moment, just a moment, it looked like he was going to attack Pearce right there, consequences be damned. The crowd held its collective breath. Security positioned themselves at ringside, ready to intervene. The entire arena was balanced on a knife's edge. But Breakker did something unexpected. He laughed. A cold, humorless laugh that was somehow more terrifying than any physical outburst would have been. He leaned in close to Pearce, said something the microphones couldn't quite pick up, and then dropped the mic at Pearce's feet. The disrespect was palpable. The message was clear: this isn't over. As Breakker exited the ring and walked up that ramp, the camera followed every step. His posture, his energy, everything about it screamed that this suspension wasn't an ending, it was gasoline on an already raging fire. The broadcast showed Pearce in the ring, looking like a man who'd just made a necessary decision that he knew would have massive consequences. The weight of leadership in that moment was visible on his face. The emotional climax and analysis, what happens next, is the question burning in everyone's mind. An indefinite suspension means there's no clear timeline, no date circled on the calendar when Bron Breakker makes his triumphant or vengeful return. WWE has complete control over when and how this story continues, and that uncertainty creates the most delicious tension imaginable. Will Breakker come back humbled, ready to play by the rules? Or will this time away only amplify his rage, making him even more dangerous, even more unhinged when he finally returns? Think about the rest of the roster breathing a temporary sigh of relief. The mid-card wrestlers who were living in fear of being the next victim of a random backstage assault can now walk through those hallways without constantly looking over their shoulders. The main event scene suddenly opens up, opportunities emerging that were previously blocked by Breakker's iron grip on dominance. Championships that seemed untouchable are now within reach for hungry competitors who've been waiting for their moment. But here's the flip side, the double-edged sword of this situation. Every single day that Bron Breakker sits at home, unable to compete, unable to unleash that aggression in a controlled environment, that rage is building. It's compounding. It's festering into something that might be impossible to contain when WWE finally decides to bring him back. And make no mistake, they will bring him back. A talent like Bron Breakker, with that name, that look, that undeniable ability, doesn't stay on the shelf forever. The suspension isn't about ending his career, it's about resetting the narrative, creating anticipation, and potentially evolving his character into something even more complex. The wrestling business thrives on moments like this. Real consequences that blur the line between storyline and reality. Adam Pearce's decision feels legitimate because it is legitimate within the framework of WWE's universe. There are rules, there are consequences, and even the most dominant champions aren't above accountability. That's what makes this so compelling. This isn't a predictable story where the monster runs roughshod with no repercussions. This is a story where actions have weight, where authority actually means something, and where the future is genuinely uncertain. Fans are already speculating about the return. Will it be at a major pay-per-view event, Breakker's music hitting at the most unexpected moment, sending the crowd into absolute pandemonium? Will there be a long redemption arc where he has to earn his way back, proving he can control his aggression? Or will WWE lean into the chaos, bringing him back as an even more unhinged version of himself, a man who feels wronged by the suspension and is out for revenge against everyone who supported it? The beauty of professional wrestling is that all of these possibilities exist simultaneously until WWE shows their hand. The uncertainty is part of the magic, part of what keeps us coming back week after week, refreshing our social media feeds, watching every show, desperate for clues about what's coming next. Final reminder and emotional close, as we close out this breakdown of one of the most shocking decisions in recent WWE history, I want to say thank you for being here, for being part of this journey, for caring about this business as much as I do. If this video gave you chills, if it made you think about wrestling in a new way, if you're as fired up about Bron Breakker's suspension as the millions of fans debating it right now, then please hit that like button. It helps this channel grow, it helps us reach more passionate wrestling fans, and it tells me that you want more content like this. Subscribe to SLAMZONE if you haven't already, because we're just getting started. Every week brings new twists, new drama, new moments that remind us why we fell in love with wrestling in the first place. That notification bell is your connection to this community, your way of staying plugged into every major development the second it happens. Comment below with your thoughts, your theories about when and how Bron Breakker returns, what this means for the Intercontinental Championship, whether Adam Pearce made the right call. I read every single comment, and your insights make this channel what it is. Share this video with every wrestling fan in your life, because conversations like this are what the community is built on. We analyze together, we debate together, we experience these incredible stories together. Bron Breakker's indefinite suspension is more than just a storyline development. It's a statement about the direction of WWE, about accountability, about the balance between celebrating dominance and protecting the athletes who make this possible. Adam Pearce stood in that ring and made a decision that took courage, that prioritized the well-being of the roster over short-term ratings and easy storytelling. Where this goes from here is anyone's guess, and that's exactly what makes it so special. We're all on this ride together, watching history unfold in real time. Bron Breakker will be back, of that you can be certain. But the man who returns might be completely different from the man who was suspended. The time away could transform him, could channel that aggression into something even more focused and devastating, or it could break something inside him that makes him even more unpredictable. Until that moment comes, until we hear that music hit again and see Bron Breakker walk through that curtain, we wait. We speculate. We build anticipation for what promises to be one of the most explosive returns in WWE history. This is SLAMZONE, where we don't just watch wrestling, we live it. Thank you for being here, thank you for your passion, and I'll see you in the next video where we continue breaking down every major moment that shapes the world of professional wrestling. Stay locked in, stay passionate, and remember that in this business, anything can happen and usually does. The Bron Breakker story is far from over. In fact, it feels like it's just beginning.